Welcome, guys. Looking forward to an interesting conversation. Um, to start things off, you have three different firms and very different firms. And so there's an overlap in your operations and the kind of services that you offer, but they're actually three very, very different businesses serving three different markets. So I'm going to give each of you the chance to kind of talk to the audience about what's your business? What are you guys doing? And, so what's the mission, business by business? So, Ridwan, I'll let you lead off on this particular one.
So, thank you very much, Tomiwa. At OPay, we're mostly focused on payments, to be sincere. You buying your food, you taking your transport from one place to the other, whether it's bike, motorcycle, or bus. You taking loans from us, or, paying for your utility bills. So we're basically focused on the payments part of everybody's everyday life.
Interesting. All right, cool. Hello, everyone. So we're 4 years old, not five, by the way. Thank you very much. We're not that old. I don't know if people know this, but one person dies every 16 minutes from an Okada accident in Lagos. Officially. Unofficially, it's much worse than that. At the same time, when you look at that, the average person spends anywhere between 3 to 6 hours a day in traffic, depending on where you live. That's as much as 25% of your life. That's a lot of time to sit in traffic. So what we do at Max is, at least for the customers on the consumer side, is we make your life easier, right? By giving you safe alternatives to sit down in traffic for all that time and protecting you from, a lot of the informal or regulated modes of transport like the downfalls and the Okadas, by giving you something that is properly measured, properly screened, and, we can guarantee quality. On the driver's side, most drivers in Lagos don't own their Okadas. I think about 70% of the market doesn't own their Okadas. And they pay as much as 150% to 200% in some cases in rental fees every year. That keeps them in a consistent cycle of poverty. And how that even translates to some of our data is about 60 to 70% of our drivers, when they first join us, live in shacks. At Max, the average driver makes in dollars, about $600 a month, right, take home. And the critical reason why that is beyond a lot of the training and quality and screening and guarantees that we put in place to ensure high quality of the driver, we take it to the next level in terms of expanding the ability to, get customers. So beyond doing the 100 naira, 200 naira short distance trips, drivers are able to do things like go to the airports and go to much farther places that guarantee better revenue. So what we're doing is building the technology and finance infrastructure to empower mobility in Nigeria and make motorcycle and other types of mobility safe, affordable, and accessible for customers today. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I would say, the company I'm here with is Gozem. Gozem was launched November 2018. It's a mobility company, very similar to Max, very similar to ORide. Effectively, it's an Uber for Okadas, I would say, to this audience. But internally, we probably think of it more as a Grab or Gojek, if you're familiar with Southeast Asian markets, right? So effectively, it's tap a button and a rider comes and picks you up. As mentioned, we have Zemi Johns, is what we call it in Benin and in Togo. But we have motorcycles, we also have cars, we also have kekes or tricycles that are all active on our platform today. So we're in Lomé right now, we're also in Cotonou, and our target market, I should probably say, is Francophone Africa, right? So there's probably something interesting there. I think a lot of people, Nigeria is the heart of Africa, 200 million or whatever, the big number you want to think about with the population. But if you look at the Francophone zone, the franc zone, the currency, right? So as a zone, that's the same size population as in Nigeria. So that's where we're really targeting. Next year, we'll be starting in Cameroon and also Gabon as well. So platform is very similar. We're focused on safety, reliability, making sure folks have access to affordable transport, right? So if you look at, it's really revolutionary what these guys have done in Nigeria, and I'll add Gokada as well, right? So you can really navigate around the city in a safe manner. That's something that, I lived in Nigeria myself for the last, really before 2018, for the last 5 years. And there wasn't that option really. Max was obviously here. But it's interesting to see that growth. And it gives a lot of access to people at the bottom end of the earnings, I should say, the bottom end of the pyramid to some degree, right? So not everyone can afford a taxi, not everyone can afford a tricep, but motorcycle is very much accessible, and that's kind of what we're targeting with Gozem.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start with you, Emeka, on defining what success looks like for your business. And so, what's really interesting about this space is it's really young. I mean, Chinedu just corrected me; they're 4 years old, and in this space, where ORide is less than a year old, that makes them, one of the longer sort of standing companies in this space. And so, from what does success look like to you? What does the what does the end goal look like? What does Gozem look like as a business when it's really thriving?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, right? So I would say probably our average fare is about $1 if you look at the space, right? So, and we take about 20%. So kind of as we look to the future, a lot of people could answer success in terms of revenue, profitability, in terms of impact to communities. I think for us, we really focus more on impact, right? So it's not just a revenue story. I would say obviously that's a part of it, but our ultimate goal, which aligns with your question, our ultimate goal isn't just mobility, but we're kind of looking at a super app model. So how can we make the most impact for consumers' lives, right? So if you go to Togo, we're really the first application people are using that's not Facebook, that's not Instagram, right? There's not a lot of local content, so we're bringing that. We have the ability to really touch people's lives in a way that is unique, I'd say. It's not like that in Nigeria. We can't have the same impact like that in Nigeria, right? We're really the app that's bringing people online. We're starting with mobility, but then we want to move on to financial services and be able to help people access credit, our drivers as well. So it's that's how we think about where we're going. It's not just trips. Obviously, that's a key metric. But it's also how many different services can we offer to consumers that help them integrate into kind of this digital society. And we look at mobility as the way to penetrate that market at first.
Interesting.
I think that's a fantastic question. So, what does success look like? We don't know what success looks like, right? But for us, the goal right now is, or what we're learning is, the more financially stable our drivers are, the more financially successful they are, the better we are as a business. So the impact in terms of quality of life on drivers is extremely critical to us. So, for example, if you compare our model with a lot of other models on the market, most businesses run this model where you come with your own Okada, we'll give you an app, and you get out the street. Because of the quality problems in this market and licensing problems, businesses are literally killing people, like killing drivers and killing customers, right? Because there's not enough quality control. So for us today, what success looks like is guaranteeing quality end to end, so that you as a customer, you as a driver can get on that bike and feel safe throughout that experience. For the drivers too, it key for us is transforming people from one socioeconomic class to the next socioeconomic class. So if a lot of people, for example, I'll give my personal story.
Actually, that's a nice line.
Yeah, I'll save that for the future. But essentially, I grew up in a military family, and secondary school, my parents borrowed money to pay tuition. Chidi and I went to secondary school actually, which is interesting, right? My parents borrowed money to pay tuition, and we spent the rest of the year paying that money back to like family and friends, right? But we were lucky. Now, the thing is, a lot of people who could have been in similar situations wouldn't end up where I am today. So, Max for us and what success looks like for us is specifically focused on building businesses that create sustainable systems of support around the drivers who work for us. So, when you come to Max, we have things like welfare teams, and we're focused on not just health insurance, but what is the quality of health insurance we're giving you? What is the quality of accident insurance we're giving you? For the passengers, we have passenger liability insurance. So if you're in an accident for any reason, we have a field operations team that responds to you, cleans up the scene, and takes you to hospital straight. And we can actually make sure you're treated. Because when people are in accidents, how quickly you respond makes a difference between how severe the accident could be. Not that we're paying for accidents, right? And then we've also done a lot of work around like safety scores, using some AI to figure out what that looks like and how to improve the experience for both the driver and both the passenger. So what does success look like for us? Drivers moving from one socioeconomic class to the next, passengers being able to hail a ride that is safe consistently, and the experience essentially continue to grow together.
Okay. Ridwan.
So I'll be talking from the position of OPay and ORide, because I basically worked for OPay and then also worked for ORide. Yesterday I was in Kaduna, right, and we actually have operations in Kaduna.
Okay.
We have a lot of.
How many cities do you have operations in now?
Probably 13 as
Okay.
of yesterday. So I went to get
By
this
this evening, that might have changed.
So I actually went to get this ring in the market, and the seller needed to reduce the size. And I was like, we were just gisting. I wore an OPay cap, and I was like, you did work for OPay? I said, yeah, Naso, sir, Malam. So it was not like he has OPay on his phone, but he hasn't signed up. And I was like, okay, I'll be your customer. Make you be my customer too now. So I took him through the process of signing up. And I actually tried to teach him how to fund his account. So he opened his GT Bank app. Because in OPay, you can actually fund your account from any bank by just doing a normal bank transfer. You would choose Paycom bracket OPay, and you put your phone number without the first zero, which is like your new bank account number. And then he funded his account. So when he put his password, his GT Bank password, and I was like, I peeped and saw his account balance. His account balance was like 500K. And this was a guy who probably never used other payment apps. Probably never tried to buy something on Jumia or Konga. And right now, he's going to be inside OPay with the ability to pay for bills, with the ability to get a loan, with the ability to take a bike or a car or a keke napep or a bus, right? And, I placed a call across to one of my colleagues, and I was like, a startup has a better chance of building an app on OPay and succeeding, or even grabbing a lot of customers, than just building your own app and spending a lot of money on marketing. So success for us is having 20% of this country on OPay, and having almost everybody doing everything they need to do with OPay. You want to take a bus, you want to take a bike, you want to take a train, you want to pay for bills, you want to pay a supermarket owner. I mean, we want you to be able to do everything you do on a daily basis in OPay. And that is what success looks like for us.
Interesting. I mean, it's interesting. It's the same. It's a very similar play that, say, Gozem sort of aims to make from what OPay is trying to do. Although OPay is probably starting $49 million ahead of Gozem. Also, if my numbers are right. So a bit of an elephant.
I mean, so if I can come in there, the reason why we've been as successful, it's not because of the money we have. Everybody thinks it's because of the money.
Probably doesn't hurt though. It probably doesn't hurt though.
Look, we're a bunch of practical people that put in a lot of hours in doing what we do, right? I mean, before we even raised the funding, we already became the largest mobile money business in the country, and everyone didn't know, right? So we have a lot of talent willing to actually die for the company, literally, right? So, I mean, I think that the fact that we've put in a lot of effort to build what we have is the most important thing that we have.
I mean, so let's be a bit frank about this. I mean, the money is an asset. You're not exactly starting from zero. You didn't build the largest mobile money network from ground up.
Actually, we started from zero. So let me give you an interesting story. When we started January 2018, we actually didn't have an app.
Okay.
And Opera acquired a company in Nigeria, Paycom, and acquired the same company in Kenya, another company in Kenya. And the chairman thought that Nigeria was going to be a difficult place to do business.
Okay.
So they didn't give us resources, actually.
Okay. All right.
They put a lot of the resources in Kenya. The engineers in Sweden, the legal in Norway, everybody focused on Kenya.
Okay.
And I would wake up in the morning having nothing to do, literally, for 3 months. And one day we figured maybe we should just try the agent business. So we had just one feature, transfer to bank. Just transfer to bank. And I had a friend at Global Athletics. I transferred money to him, and they did POS integration for us. Within 6 months of that period, before the next meeting, we had processed 5 billion naira.
Okay.
And most of the agents we acquired was from our own pocket, traveling to places like Barutin, Shaki, like weird places you've never been in this country.
Okay.
And onboarding agents.
Okay.
And sometimes me giving agents loans to run their businesses.
Okay.
Right? So the truth is that we built a very big mobile money business without having a lot of support from Opera.
Okay.
I'm curious. How do
Opera and
you?
Paycom as a starting point. It's a
Right.
lot different than from ground up. Nevertheless, that's fine, actually. A key question I want to talk about, I mean, in terms of sort of what this success looks like and where the long-term goal is for each of these companies. And the answers are going to be slightly different for each of you, I imagine. The question I have is around profitability. And so, on a global basis, I mean, sort of mobility is a big area, and the granddaddy of them all, the company that started it, Uber, our kind sponsors today, are still not profitable. I mean, they've gone public, they've raised previously unheard of sums of money, but they're still not profitable. Now, I'm thinking about in markets where you've talked about an average ride price of $8 for Gozem, given the thinness of sort of the consumer wallet in Africa. How do you drive sort of profitability in these companies? So I'm gonna have you start, Emeka, and then.
No, it's a very good question. I think for us, we also have a bit of a luxury, I would say, when I look at Max, when I look at ORide and other players here. And what I mean to say is regulations, right? So in our markets, it's not as regulated. So we really have a traditional Uber type model where we're asset light. The operators come to us with their own vehicles, and we're not in that market, right? So this is very different than being in a space where you're actively financing the vehicles, effectively giving that to the rider, to the driver, and getting a payback, whether it's by trip, whether it's a fixed fee. So that, to us, to Gozem, these are two separate businesses. One is kind of the traditional ride hailing, effectively connecting the driver and the rider, and the other business is kind of an asset finance business, which can be profitable on its own, right? For the stage we're at right now, that would add a lot of complexity to our business. It's something we're interested in doing. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. How do you get access for drivers to earn money with your platform, right? A big barrier to them in these markets, as you mentioned, the thinness of the wallet. Not everyone can buy a bike to join Max, to join Gozem. Not everyone could do that. So access to finance is very important. But to your question about profitability, it's a big part, right? So that's something, to your first question, how do we differentiate ourselves? That's a dimension I would say Gozem is a little bit different. We're traditionally asset light like an Uber, all right? The second piece to your question, just for us, I mean, even though it's $1 and we're making maybe 20 cents a ride, these things add up, all right? So if you look around here, just here, you'd see, if you just clock maybe 10 minutes, how many Gokada, how many Max, how many ORide do you see just in 10 minutes? So these things add up. There's also, it's maybe not a big transaction value, but this heavy frequency. This is also why we like this business, right? As a way to potentially acquire customers. Your transport is one of the key things you need in life. You always have to move from point A to point B. It's like food in that aspect. So there's a high frequency business, and that's the beauty of the model, right? So you build the platform, you create operational playbooks, and you could go very quickly. For us, that means going from Lomé to Cotonou to some other second-tier cities in our markets. But you could also look at what ORide has done, what Max is doing, right? Being able to go across Nigerian states very quickly with the same platform, same model, and that really lends itself to profitability, right? So you can have scale, just kind of that leverage. You have the same team, same platform, and then you could scale very quickly. So that's kind of how we think about it. It's certainly, it's not the U.S. markets. It's also another question that's another subject for us. This is why our markets are very interesting. An Uber type company, as you mentioned, I worked for Uber myself. I saw how Uber thought about these markets, right? In my view, at least. When your DNA is US, when you're used to kind of making serious dollar money, it's hard to get serious about making 20 cents a ride, right? It's hard to really get serious and invest a team in that. So that creates a bit of a timing moat. It's not going to last forever, but it also leads to a time for us to grow scale and achieve some leverage for profitability.
Okay, interesting.
So fantastic question. So from July last year till about December, we were profitable in Lagos.
Okay. How many markets are you in?
Sorry?
How many markets are you in?
We're in two markets.
Two markets.
Lagos and Accra. Predominantly transportation. We're not doing
Okay.
other services yet. So what we're learning is you can choose to focus on growth, or you can choose to focus on optimization.
Okay.
And your choice is determined by what you're trying to do as a business.
Okay.
So while we were raising capital and we were really running in the red, we just focused on we're not going to grow for now.
Okay.
We're going to become efficient. And from July last
How big is your operation now?
we have about 108 people.
Okay. How many bikes on the road?
So we've onboarded close to 2,000, but on an active basis today, I think about 800 plus are active every day.
Okay.
We're doing over 13,000 rides a day right now across the markets. Not too much, but we're getting there. In Accra today, we're profitable, right, as a business.
Okay.
Lagos, we aren't, just because of the way Lagos is. We have our technology costs here. We have all the government stuff we have to deal with. There's a bunch of other things that are happening that have to be fixed, right? And as a business today, a lot of the money, all the money we make in commissions today goes back to the drivers, right?
Okay.
Commissions and all sorts of different things. So we are driving some of that stuff. What we are focused on today is more on growing the business, but growing the business in a sustainable way, right?
Okay.
So every time we're doing promotions, we're looking at data and saying, you can't hear me.
Right.
Let me shout.
Okay.
So okay, no, that's too much. Testing. Is this work? Is this fine?
Comfortable? Okay.
Does this work? All right, cool. So we're profitable as a business in Accra today. We're not profitable in Lagos, and the key reason is, this is where the government expenses typically are. This is where we're dealing a lot more with unions. This is where we have our technology costs. This is where a lot of other things are happening, right? So there's a mix and balance there. Now, as a business, we've learned that you can either focus on profitability or focus on optimization. If you focus on two of them, you're going to spend a lot of money and achieve nothing. So what we're focused on now as a business is growing this market. And growing our markets today is heavily driven by a bit of debt financing and, of course, people and SG&A costs. So there's a lot of that happening, but we're growing quite quickly in both markets. And, we expect that we should hit break even by about this time next year.
Okay. Interesting. So your just to summarize for the room, their focus is on optimizing operations.
No, growing.
Growing?
Yes.
So growing, but profitability again by this time next year.
No, break even by this time
Break
next
even
year.
by this time next year. Okay. Ridwan. I imagine this is a very interesting question for OPay. How do you think about it? Is it not a goal? Is profitability besides the point? Is growth the game? Just keen to understand.
So you said that you can focus on both, right? Okay. And I agree, you can focus on both at the same time.
Okay.
Right? You can prioritize one and come back to the other.
Okay.
You can prioritize growth and then come back to profitability.
Fair.
Right? If you have a very hardworking team, if you get lucky, and you actually have a very good product,
yep,
you will be able to make it profitable. Let's take a look at it, right?
Okay, all right.
So we subsidize rides to get customers.
Yep.
You're aware of that, right?
Everybody does it.
And we currently have 12 cities, millions of customers, actually.
Okay.
With a very high retention rate.
Okay.
Extremely high.
All right.
And then we come up with ability to give you loans.
Okay. Inside
the same app for 25%, 30%, 30 days, short-term loans.
Okay.
I mean, we all know the business of loans, right? You take default rates and you take your interest rates.
Okay.
You subtract the default rate from the interest rates. If you're able to manage your default, you're able to make a decent amount of money.
Okay.
Right? And so for us, profitability for us is about optimizing our traffic.
Okay.
Which is that bring a lot of people in, let majority of them come back every day, and build in different services that allow
services so you can money. So you make your margin off the other services,
yes,
but you get your volume off of the ride
of the
ride business. Okay. I mean, that's interesting, and it's the place that Gozem wants to get to. Max, you're not focused on sort of diversifying sort of across services at the moment. Is that long term something you think is going to be part of the model as well, or are you pretty focused on being sort of a ride-hailing, delivery, mobility business? Is that like your...
So that's a fantastic question. Can you guys hear me clearly? Don't come and say you can't hear me. Oh, you can partially hear me. Wait, testing one, two. Let's do this. So let's do this again. Too loud?
Too loud.
Too loud. All
Yeah.
right, cool.
There's a comfortable medium somewhere there.
Good? All right, cool. All right, cool. So that's a fantastic question, right? So are we focused on other things beyond mobility? Absolutely. So what we've done is, if you look, we haven't opened a lot of these services to customers, but we have to drivers.
Okay.
So on our platform, we've built in wallets. And the key reason why we had to do that about a year and a half ago was because we kept having issues with you place a ride and the driver calls you and says, hey, Oga, na cash, I mean a card. Once they hear card, they're like, nah, they're not doing it, they cancel the trip. And the key reason for them is because they want to, quote unquote, buy fuel or they want to go and eat food or something. So we built in cash wallets last year to help us manage those reconciliations, and then have built in features that allow things like wallet to bank transfers, and I brought a couple of companies to come and work with us on that. I think you guys have that as well, right? So part of why we did all those things was to help solve some of the issues we're seeing with drivers and cash and card and all those things. Over time, we will open some of those services to customers. Part of why not all of them are open to customers today is because we want to make sure that things like fraud detection are properly built out and are in place. We've had people who use our wallet to make payments, the consumer wallet, steal people's cards, transfer money onto the wallet, and then try to get that money transferred from the wallets to their bank accounts. Essentially use us as a conduit to commit fraud. We're not able to let some of those things happen. Part of what we're also doing beyond Okadas and Kekes today is we're in partnership with a few people to do other services. We're rolling out electric vehicles before the end of the year. We brought on BV, one of our investors who's particularly interested in electric mobility, right? So they've come on board, and part of the work that they're helping us do as well is figuring out what the electric strategy should look like properly, and then deploying. So we have a technical lead for e-mobility who joined us about 2 weeks ago, and we expect that the first model of the electric bike at Max will roll out at the end of November. So we're quite excited about that.
I'm just going to go on that. And the primary reason to switch to electricity, the primary benefit for Max in doing that is
more efficient.
More efficient.
So the drivers will make more money doing that because what we're seeing is with the charging stations and all those other things we're building in place, it will effectively be cheaper for a driver to run a motorcycle on electricity than it is to run on gas, on gasoline. And the added benefit is, you will not have all the noise, you will not have all the pollution. Potentially long-term benefits for us or for people in Nigeria comes out to things like reduced incidences of things like asthma attacks and so on and so forth.
Chinedu, it's taking all of my willpower to resist making a PHCN joke right now. As you can see, I lost that battle. Anyway, that's interesting. Ridwan, and we're going to go to questions from the audience in a moment. If you haven't registered on Slido, please do, slido.com, and use the hashtag TCMobility. If you ask questions, I will pick, they'll be voted, and I'll pick sort of the highest voted questions and get the panelists to answer them. So if you haven't gone to slido.com, please go to slido.com, use the hashtag TCMobility, and then you can ask questions from the panelists. Ridwan, I wanted you to talk a little bit about your ORide business, because in a sense, it is almost sort of it's almost a side thing to you. And so I'm curious about how you think about sort of ORide as a business, as an operation, across the country, your competition with the Maxes and the other people in the market, specifically on the ride side, not on the OPay side.
I've actually seen about 35 cities in this country in the last 1 month.
35 in the last 1 month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I hire a driver,
cities a day.
put a police in front, and then go around the cities. And the truth is that because we have different models, in Lagos, we buy the motorcycles. Outside of Lagos, we don't.
Okay.
Right? You bring your motorcycle, we onboard you, and that's it. And it's much bigger business than Lagos. You probably knows that. So what we've also seen is that a lot of people outside of Lagos actually have mobile phones.
Okay.
So they are able to use the app, right? More and more mobile phones is getting into the market. Think about it. Techno sold more than 1.5 million phones in Kano.
Okay.
Right? Has over 900,000 phones in Kaduna.
Okay.
I mean, when you have access to that data and you begin to see the penetration of phones, you see that there's a there's a big market in this country for us, and because of that, we've quickly moved from Lagos to expand across the country.
This country. Okay.
Right, and so from the point of view of competition, we're very fine with competition. Hopefully, we think that someday they should decide that
They should get to the cities that you're in. So you
no, we would like to partner.
to partner. Okay.
I mean, if you have motorcycles, put them on OPay or ORide. Let customers be able to use your riders. Let's make payments easy for you because, of course, we've already started payments a year ahead of everybody. And that's what we think about competition. We think that there are not many people doing what we're doing, so we're not so focused on competition.
On competition.
We're mostly focused on growth.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I'm going to ask that competition question to you, Emeka, especially because in your markets, I know we've got a team, actually, so the Big Cabal team, Zikoko, our partner, our sister company, has a few people traveling across West Africa right now, and they've just gone through Benin Republic. They're in Togo at the moment. And one of the things they noted is like there's lots and lots of bikes. I mean, they've been using bikes for transportation longer than in Anglophone Africa. They all have helmets, steep charges. So how does that affect you in terms of coming into those markets? Are you picking up those people and putting them onto your platform? Are you competing with sort of more established? Are there other mobility apps or mobility platforms that you're competing with? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I would say, no, we absolutely onboard the existing supply, right? So we work with the guys currently in the markets who've been driving for a while, who know the streets, right? That's who we initially, that's who we target. The guys who are existing, who are doing this anyway, right? So that's who we try to introduce our platform to them, tell them why it makes sense for them. Every driver on our platform is insured. There's a helmet for the passenger. Our goal as a company is to really find clients for these for the drivers, right? So we absolutely work with the existing supply. As to your other question,
And you don't get pushback from them that, well, we already have customers, we're already doing fine.
I think everyone wants to make more money, right? Okay. So at the end of the day, if we're able to say, we did studies before we got in the market, right? So we saw that the average driver is really idle, right? 35% of their time, right? So you're just sitting around their stations talking to other drivers where you prefer to actually be working and earning money, right? So we're able to go to them and say, hey, and we have the data, right? So you could really do 13 trips a day, back to back to back to back to back. It's a different lifestyle for sure, but if your goal is really to earn more, that's, then it makes sense to really consider our platform. And to your point about competition, that's what I would say is the competition, the existing traditional market, right? There are no other mobility players, large players in our markets at all, right? So we're really introducing, which has pros and cons, right? It's certainly something new. We spend a lot of time educating drivers and riders, but at the same time, we have more room for experimentation, right? You see what's going on in Lagos here. We don't have that in Cotonou or Lomé. So I would say our number one competition is just the existing supply. And as you say, I mean, if you visited Lomé, if you visited Cotonou, a real question for us as a company is why would anyone actually open their smartphone and book a Gozem when they could just go on the street in 30 seconds they have a ride. So that's kind of, what's the value proposition for us? How do we educate the market on that? Is it the case that users do want to have a helmet? That's something not every user does, right? A lot of our female riders they decline the helmet, right? So is the insurance piece something that's interesting for users? Is it, so that's also how we think about what else can we layer on? And this is why it naturally gravitates towards a kind of super app model to say what other services can we layer on, whether it's delivery, food delivery, whether it's credit, whether it's just a whole suite of services for users. But it's early stage. I would just say that's something that's very interesting to us. We see these markets as untapped opportunity. And I would say to anyone that's thinking about going into just the businesses in general, it's not necessarily always to look at Lagos and certainly not just Nigeria. There's also a lot of opportunity outside the region. If you haven't, I think actually Obi from Kobo visited me in Togo once. He came to Togo, we linked up, and something striking that he said was, where are all the cars? right? He was on the roads and it just bikes. Where are the cars, right? People can't really afford cars at all. So it just makes sense. You go there and you say, oh, this is why this kind of business might make sense in this kind of market.
Fair enough. Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to go to the audience questions. If you can put them on screen here as well. But I'm looking at sort of the top question is very relevant today, which is on rainy days, how do you sleep knowing there's going to be a dip in revenue? And Chinedu, I'm going to give you this one.
You sleep. I mean, you're not going to kill yourself.
What's kind of the impact you find on the business? I mean, what kind of a dip are you seeing on those days?
I mean, I'm not going to share those exact numbers,
Okay.
but there is a dip. The thing is, what we're seeing is that, however, it doesn't rain throughout the day, right?
Okay.
And days when it rains typically means that later in the day you will have a lot more customers, right? Because there's water on the road. There's going to be a lot of traffic for the rest of the day. People are going to be pissed off. There's a lot of humidity in the air. Nobody wants to sit in the car without AC, so they much rather get on a bike. So on rainy days, especially when it rains in the morning, for the rest of the day, there will be a lot more trips on the platform. So it's interesting considering like how that eventually works out. So it's bad and then it's really good.
Interesting.
But what we've also done as a business is also actively improve what that service looks like. So if you look at the motorcycles we use, we have the best in class motorcycles. They're four cylinder.
Can we still hear him?
Oh my god. So if you look at the bikes we have, they're the best in the market in terms of size and comfort. They're also 4-cylinder DTSI engines. So part of what that is for a customer,
Yep.
especially if it's rained during the day or earlier in the day, you might be scared, oh, there might be water on the road, they'll harm me, all that stuff. That goes out the window because the bikes are big, sturdy, and the tires are strong enough to carry you throughout. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Ridwan, this one's yours. So for ORide, would you consider your high retention rates a function of customer loyalty or because of ongoing price cuts? And that's a key question. I mean, actually, I want the others to talk about sort of what the impact of price cuts and sort of promo in terms of long-term retention of customers. Yeah.
So,
Ridwan's smiling more than he's talking.
I mean, we've gained
The TC team is familiar with this.
we've gained a lot of skills. I mean, think about it. We're in 13 cities, and if you've been following our operation really closely, you actually find out that a month ago we removed all the subsidies across the cities,
Okay.
right? And it was really interesting. There was a dip in our usage, but it wasn't different from a dip when you have a raining day,
Okay.
right? So our customers are still as loyal as they can be. And today, even though we have discounts in some cities, there are some cities that we don't have a lot of discounts. So, I mean, I think you should pay more attention to the way we operate in different markets. Try to look at the pricing in Kano, Kaduna, Abeokuta, Ilorin, Akure, and try to see the differences, right? We're not doing 80% off, 70% off. In some places, we're actually not even doing 50% off on trips. We're not doing 50 naira to go anywhere anymore.
Let me ask you a question. Have you
We're not
done
doing 100
80%
naira.
off? Have you done 80% off?
Yeah,
You've
so
done
we have ORide Day, right? We have what they call ORide Day. On ORide Day, we do crazy discounts, like 80% off, 70% off, right?
Okay.
And we gain huge amount of customers. And when there is an ORide Day, that the price is back to normal, we actually find out that the customers still stay, right? So we're constantly looking at the data, right? And we are constantly asking the questions that people outside of the company are asking, because obviously we want to build a sustainable business.
Okay.
And we think we're doing something.
Interesting. Do you want
Alright,
that
so-
question as well?
So you want me to answer the high retention promotion thing?
Yeah.
Interesting. So up until this year, we've never done promotions, period.
Okay.
We still rarely do promotions, to be honest.
Okay.
We don't find promotions to be a critical part of acquiring or retaining customers because what we do very well is selling the customer proposition. Now, if you have drivers on the road, no matter how many promotions other players are doing, for example, it doesn't change the fact that those drivers will get business. So we're not at a point where promotions by different players in the market, for example, significantly or adversely impacts our performance or our revenue as a business, right?
Okay.
What we do see with promotions is, I mean, from a few people that we've talked to in the market who've done promotions in different spaces, fintech especially, what we found is when you turn on the promotions for the fintech, you see a lot of business and then post-promotion,
Mike.
it goes down. Can you guys not hear me?
Keep speaking. I think
All right, cool. So in terms of promotions and the impact, up until about this year, we hadn't really done promotions as a business. Even now, we still do very limited amount of promotions when we do them, because we're seeing that the promotions don't significantly impact our ability to continue to grow as a business. We're still growing quite rapidly. So, for example, we've doubled revenue between June and I think end of August, for example, with very, very minimal promotions, right? We're not at a point where we think that is justifiable. And the promotions by other players in the market, for example, haven't also significantly impacted or affected our ability to grow as a business. What we're seeing is that as long as you have more drivers on the road, you continue to push the value of what those drivers are and is telling the right message to the customers, they will continue to choose value where they see that opportunity for themselves.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I imagine that promotions aren't a big part of your business.
Yeah, no, I would just second what Chinedu said. I think what we try to focus on is actually the quality of service. So folks come back. Price is something you could discount once. They try the service, even though I didn't pay much. It's terrible, so I won't try it again. So we do use promotions right now we're moving more towards targeted promotions, right? So we're really looking at reactivating customers that have lapsed, and we also look at rewarding our good customers. So that's kind of how we try to target promotions.
All right, fair enough. The next three questions are all about regulation, which is useful. So I'd like to talk a little about regulation. There's an article, Tekabal made quite a bit of a splash with an article about sort of a proposed licensing fee for Lagos State. I think that came out a couple months ago. There's just always the conversation about the unions and the guys on the streets trying to stop the bikes. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of what your experience with regulation is, what your thoughts about the state of regulation are, what your concerns are, especially because we do have regulators going to be in the room later on this afternoon. Just how you think about regulation within your businesses. And so if you start, Ridwan.
We're constantly working with regulators, right?
I imagine.
There isn't a law in most of the other cities aside Lagos that says that you need a license to operate a ride-hailing business, and there's no law against it, right? So you have to tread carefully. You have to make sure you meet in Kano it's called Casetra. In Castra, actually. In Kaduna it's called Costra or something like that.
So let me ask you a question. Is your approach to approach the regulators before you enter a city, or are you diving in and then sort of like letting them catch up to you?
Actually, we meet all regulators before we enter a city.
Okay. And you find them open, willing to work with you? What's been your experience?
Not necessarily. We come to you, we say we're ORide, we want to do this business. And sometimes they say, you know what, you have to be patient, we have to get you an approval, we have to meet the governor, and so on and so forth. But we go ahead and let them understand that we're going to start a pilot.
Okay.
While they're trying to do that.
All right.
And then we go ahead and start a pilot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So we've done this for 4 years. When the first computer started, right? So we have a very different experience with regulators than most people have, right?
Okay.
So we've gone through the process of between 2016 and 2017, spending a lot of time meeting, House of Assembly, local government, etc., unions, and so on and so forth, with very little progress, right? And then we eventually took the approach of we're going to launch, and we're going to let them catch up to where we are, right?
Okay.
And so we did that in July of 2017.
Can we still hear him? Okay. All right. We're good.
We did that in July of 2017 and rolled out, and they did catch up. So part of what also happened, so I'm a biker now. Tayo is a biker. We have like 6 people in our business who are bikers.
Okay.
We predominantly became bikers because when we first started, we were literally the only player in the market. And so at every union stop, we were being harassed. And so we all became bikers because we would literally go out in the streets and go hang out at the most notorious union stops and then fight them every time. Like, look, why? Why? Let us know why. And eventually became a thing of...
So the difference between doing business in Africa and doing business in San Francisco.
So we did that we did that throughout 2017 to the point where, so now most of those areas, to the point where we knew all the DPOs from Ikeja area F police station all the way to Songotedo, because it was a catch and release. They arrest us, you go back, they release you, they arrest you, go back, you release you. Some people they arrest you, you go out, you will call somebody they will talk to them. It was a mess, right? So over time we've gone from that initial we're fighting you, we're fighting us phase to now we all understand what the law says, right?
Okay.
We've also gone to the federal level to kind of to get a good idea of, what does the Ministry of Transportation think? There are no federal laws governing Okadas in Nigeria, period. The government does not recognize Okadas as a means of transport,
Interesting.
right? So
Would you welcome that transportation? Would you welcome that regulation? Would it make your life easier if it was federal, or are you happy with this patch? It seems like Ridwan's happy with his patchwork.
So to be honest, I don't know that it being federal makes a difference, because at the end of the day, implementation is where it makes a difference. So, for example, last year, Ambody was saying one thing, and the police were saying, well, we cannot keep arresting you, so operate. Right? So it depends on, it comes down to at the state level and at the people who are implementing what law actually makes a difference. Now, today, for example, we're playing a very leading role in resolving a lot of the union issues, the government issues, especially in Lagos and in all the other cities that we're in. We will welcome regulation. Of course, fantastic. It makes things easier, but like, if it doesn't come, we won't die.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And for you, Emeka, what's the regulatory situation like across Francophone Africa?
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. Again, to what Chinedu said about the phases, right? Initially, there might be a bit of a conflict with some regulators, right? And I think, what's
Do
interesting.
you have just regulators, or do you have unions as well that you're battling?
Oh, we have unions, but we work with unions, right? So again, we work with the existing supply. So we go to the unions, talk to them about what we're doing. So we have very strong, good relationships with the unions in our markets. What's interesting is the government. So what we see, and I think we've seen that in this type of industry across the world, right, where you have innovation and that kind of attracts regulation. They see you doing a new thing, and let's try to get there. So for a concrete example in our markets, if you go to Lome today, 99% of the Zemi-Johns, the Okada drivers there, do not have a license, right, today. And 100% do not have a commercial license plate, right? So since Gozem has been in the market, and you now see we're very visible in the market, we're very branded, right? So folks see us going up and down the streets, and now there's a new initiative that's coming down in Lome, whereby I think November, theoretically, we'll see how it works, but theoretically, everyone to do this job, you will now need to have a license, right? So we're now moving, and we think it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing at all, but we're moving in that direction with the government. And the other thing that should come down in Q1 is the commercial license plate for all drivers. So it's interesting to us. We're very happy to work with the government. I think we have the same goals to make transport safer and kind of more reliable for drivers and also riders as well. So,
All right.
yeah.
I think that's as many questions as we can take this afternoon. There's going to be networking sessions, so there should be an opportunity to ask some more questions. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.